Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War High Voltage event in which the Vault Guard is added to the game. So this is our first full week with version 8.1, and with it we are supposed to be able to start crafting the gem and cosmic dragons in the Soul Forge for a higher amount of Dragonite, but be able to get them as a guaranteed drop. However, it didn't seem to do that yet. I checked every single corner in Soulforge. Other people have as well. This might be fixed later today. This is the first hour after the update, so maybe later today or some other time they will end up fixing it. Maybe once they're in the office and everything, but as it currently stands, I see a distinct lack of the dragons. So basically what they end up doing is, of course, the normal way that you've always been able to get the gem dragons and cosmic dragons is you would open up the egg and have a random chance to get one of the 6. However, due to the RNG of this, they have finally added, as of 8.1, a guaranteed method, 1 per week, to be able to go get them directly. We still do not currently know what cost this will be associated with, and hopefully later tonight on stream or something similar, we'll hopefully have it fixed by then, so we'll be able to go and take a peek at it. But as it currently stands, yeah, they haven't done that, so yeah. But they will do that soon, TM. The other thing that this update ended up doing, which is kind of interesting. I actually was messing around with this on Friday when I was setting up the new computer. Oh yeah, by the way, this is also our first time we're not streaming, but recording with this new setup. So hopefully the audio levels and everything else are fine, as, yeah, first time. It should look pretty much the same overall. But anyways, or sound anyways. What was I doing? Oh yeah, thingy thing. Yes. So we have a Legends Reborn this week. Legends Reborn, of course, all you have to do is just kill some purples. Should be pretty easy. You just have to kill 200 purples over the course of the week, which is pretty straightforward. Just go anywhere, kill some purple. Pretty much just doing anything will already get you there. And you get a bunch of free things. The most interesting thing that they end up doing is, well, aside from changing some visual things here, is we have a new map. So they have changed up this map. I haven't seen this for every location. So far I've only seen this for, I guess, Kedar and technically Broken Spire. So I'm not sure how different it is or if they use different sets or what exactly. But yeah, this is basically how the new map goes. You have your little quest nodes like you would have had before, except now it's laid out on a map thing. So it's the same thing as always, you know, same battle, same storyline, same everything. It's just laid out on this little map, and this is the case for all quests now. If you're a relatively newer player, you probably have already seen this, as it's been out since last week's Tuesday. However, if you're in the camp of people who have finished out every single quest line, this is the first time we really get to properly interact with it. But otherwise, everything's the same. All the dialogue, all the battles, everything else. It just has this little map screen going for it compared to before where it didn't. As far as rewards from this event, if you go and do that quest line once, and luckily you do not need to do it 5 times anymore, only once, you will get a maxed out Ancient Horror. It's actually pretty nice. Out of any of these pets, honestly, this is probably the best one of the 4, and you get it for free. All you have to do is the questline thingy, so that's pretty good. Ancient Horror gets resummoned from quite a few things, like 25% revive and such, and I believe it does come in with these 5 all extra stats, even when it ends up coming in through 25% revive. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I'm pretty certain it does come in with its 5 all stats. So if it does, it's actually pretty useful for that. As while it's really rare, there are quite a lot of troops, good handful, a couple dozen, however many it is, that do on def have a chance of summoning this. So a little bit extra stats for it, always nice. Always had a little bit of issue kind of getting that last hit that it needs in order to, you know, actually be useful. And that'll make it a little bit easier to do so. Other pets that we have are the Catherics, which not too good to end up having more stats on. The Medea, which isn't too bad. It does have full AoE damage. So this does end up giving it, you know, 5 extra magic, 20 damage to everything. So not too horrible in that regard. And we also have one for Deathlock Dreelic. I believe this is the true damage guy with that, like, 1 death mark mechanic. The way he distributes damage is just a little bit weird. Him having more stats, I guess, isn't awful, but it's not that worth it. Just because you're never using that Mythic to begin with, and this having higher stats isn't going to really make you use him more compared to like Takshaka Pet or something similar, where it's already attached to something really good and then gains even more of a benefit. Just is just attached to something pretty average. And yeah, it's a little bit better now, but not enough to really compete with other true damage options out there. You can end up buying a billion Purple Deed books, which is the more useful one. However, it costs, I believe, like 50 bucks to get there, to get 16 of them. So if you personally find that worth it, you can. That's basically half a kingdom upgrade. I personally would say that is not worth it. However, I don't know, Purple Deed books are hard to come by. You also get all the shiny coins and everything else along the way. As far as the other tier, generally, as far as this event is concerned for the average person, do the quest line, you get a free Ancient Horror. Do all the free ones, you'll probably get these purple kills automatically anyways. And the only other one that's really a toss-up on if you should or shouldn't do is the gem one. I personally do. You end up getting basically one whole max troop. You get 3 bronze, 2 silver, and 1 gold glory orb, so enough to fully max out 1 mythic, as well as a few extra to just upgrade other stuff. And you also get enough food to max out 2 of the pets with the blue and purple, which I believe is associated to him and the mythic one, if I'm not mistaken, as far as coloration is concerned. But, oh, so you get 8 Imperial there. I almost forgot about that, which is also pretty nice. So, personally, I would say it's worth it. I think it's like, what, 1,350 gems? Which is a little pricey, but if you have the gems laying around, it's definitely worth it. If you're earlier on in the game, probably not. Probably just do the first one to get the pet, and that's about it. I forget how much this was, but I think it's like 50 or 100 or something. Pretty cheap to get a pet and all the food to max it, essentially. So at least get that, I guess, if nothing else. But definitely go for the 2 free ones, as they are very quick to get. And one of them you pretty much got automatically just from playing the game this week. And the other one you just have to go through the quest line real quick. Anyways, that's the biggest thing that we have going on this week that is something different. But let's start all the way from the top, all the way over to the events. One other thing to mention, actually I guess I'll get there when we get to the drop table. But as far as the reward of the Vault Guard, he is a ultra rare, so 300 glory if you want to go stock up on a bunch of gold or brown blue arcanes. As far as your troop itself, you're not really going to be using this thing. It deals some damage to an enemy and then freeze and death marks them. I can see this being okay if you pick it as like an arena, but outside of that context, there's just things that do this better. There's not really much of a use case for this, even in early game. Its traits aren't anything special either. So for the most part, I don't really see any use case for this other than just another thing to upgrade your kingdom. Keep in mind, as far as Kedar, you do want to keep it at 26 star though, because it is a purple kingdom. So you want to save all your purple deeds for all of the purple magic kingdoms, making all the other purple kingdoms pretty useless to actually upgrade, including Kedar. As far as the event key drop table is concerned, there is something pretty noteworthy. Even though he was added pretty recently, and there have been some situations where it has been added, hasn't been added, I can confirm, and I saw at least 1 or 2 of them earlier, that Pharaoh Khafre is indeed in drop table. Is there another one here? Only the one. But he is indeed in drop table. Pharaoh Khafre. Did I see another one here? No, that's Pharaoh Nefertani. There's so many pharaohs in this place. But yes, he is in drop table. As you guys know, he is by far the most useful thing here. Honestly, this kingdom's not too bad as far as drop table now that I'm looking at it. But if you do opt to open some event keys, 3 of the 4 mythics are not bad. Pharaoh Khafre is probably the main one you're looking for, with the 2 explodes per turn is its main gimmick. It's a good alternative to Takshaka in situations where you will not lose. So he's actually quicker and more consistent for mana accumulation than Takshaka. The biggest issue with him is he doesn't have as good of a follow-up, whereas Takshaka could be your solo damage source and mana accumulator. He can't quite be the same. He's mostly mana over damage source. He gets to convert all gems of a chosen color to curse gems, so not only is he a 4 times cursor, but also a massive brown mana accumulator, which can also feed back into himself. And he also gets to convert 3 skulls into Deathmark gems, which allows you to effectively have Curse and Deathmark in one single troop, which is pretty nice. It's similar to what this troop does, except way, way, way better. And on top of that, he also converts all other skulls to Ubernim Skull. So if you have a way to convert all of them, you'll be able to go and pretty much explode the whole board, which will also end up triggering your 3 Deathmark gems. But he's mostly used for his explode, even though his ability is not half bad. Pharaoh Nefertani is basically just a weaker version of him, with less mana accumulation and just more useless in every possible way. And then the other 2 are also useful. Farish Ra, high soul gain in the entire game, 150%. Not too good compared to Vault Event weekends that we just had, where you could farm souls way better. But if you ever do want to just farm souls whenever, or want to do a soul boost ratio team, he is the best way to do so. And lastly, we have Rafamon, which I personally consider a little bit weaker than other troops I like Wild King and Wild Queen. However, he ends up doing a mix of purple and skull, and gaining some souls. But the most relevant thing is that he's a scroll spammer that has cleanse all allies. This used to be on Divine Ishbala, that one that gave mana to all divine troops. However, they end up moving it to this. This is currently the only troop in the game that has cleanse all allies into a skull option, which of course is great for getting rid of entangle, freeze, and stuff like that. There are of course other ways of doing this, just like using a Beatrix on your team. However, this is a way that you can do it specifically off your cast rather than on a trait, if the enemy's like specifically stun heavy or something similar. Beyond that, his traits aren't anything particularly special though, used almost entirely for his ability. But overall, not too bad of a drop table. Even if you miss, you still get things like Keeper of Souls as a okay skull spammer. As far as things that are not in drop table, should probably go over those. So everything not in drop table include the 5 faction troops from Fang, as well as the Bearer Lord. Bearer Lord is only from the current raid event in the raid event shop this week, as well as actually that's it. And everything else is in drop table, including 100% confirmed the Pharaoh Khafre. Let's just recheck one last time. The Pharaoh Khafre, and you know for sure that's not from Gem Keys, because Gem Key drop table, which is actually why I wanted to mention it right now, is still the Mythic from last Friday. So, of course, we covered a video on that if you haven't already checked it. But the Mythic from last Friday still available all the way until Friday reset time. So basically the end of Thursday. It's okay. It's a guaranteed magic gain into all other stats. There are some situations for it. There are even some really weird teams you could do with like triple into it, but the biggest issue with that is its mana drain. So triple Dwarven Gate and stuff like that is still technically better than it, even though it's less mana, only 15 per cycle instead of 24 like this Mythic does. The fact that it's mana drain gem is more of a downside to this troop rather than an upside, and probably the biggest thing bringing it down, other than just not having more follow-up on either side of its ability. But its choice mechanic is still nice and situationally useful. I just don't feel like it's going to come out that much. And there are alternatives to gaining magic that isn't it. But if you don't have those alternatives, it could definitely be a great option. And of course, we'll be always pretty much using some restrictions like War Gear, Volpacia, and stuff like that. So if you're lacking some better options for that, could be a way to kind of fill it out if you still want to open Glory Gem Guild and VIP chests for the rest of this week until Friday to potentially go get it. Worth considering. As far as event weeks, also we do have all the teams to go show. Not sure if I mentioned that at the beginning, but honestly, we've been doing that pretty much every single video now. We might still have some videos where we save it for the stream, but currently we're back to showing teams again, I guess. But anyways, this is a low rarity team here. But it is Kedar restriction, which is also the same restriction as Underworld. However, your teams will be a little bit different for both because, of course, for this, you do have to use Bearer Lord. Using Bearer Lord on your team not only is 2x score, but of course he also has 2x magic, so you can hit quite hard while also having the very required 2x score that you're definitely going to want to have for when you kill all the bosses. But as far as your options are concerned, we do have a new explodey weapon. You actually get this for, how much is it? It's on the tier 3 thingy. 250, I believe it is. But you end up getting this weapon, explodes all blue gems, grants a random status effect to all Kedar allies, and then summons a Kedar troop. Overall, not too bad. Big upside of it is Bone Storm. If your specific team does not want Bone Storm, no worries. There is another explodey weapon that should be in Soulforge this week, which is the right here. I believe I used it on one of the teams, the Scarab Blade. So if you don't want to have Skull Storm, use Scarab Blade instead as your resummon option. Otherwise, use the new weapon. Or you could also just do it based on accessibility. You can simply just use this if you don't happen to have it, as you'll get it naturally just from spending the gems on the event. However, Scarab Blade might be a little bit safer if your team isn't particularly skull-oriented, which Kedar has a lot of ways to do so, but there are also ways to, especially with higher rarity stuff, to not go skull-related. So if you still want a resummon weapon but don't want the Skull Storm to backfire, do keep in mind you can Scarab Blade replace it out in any given team. But other than that, you're pretty much either going in all in on skulls or all in on whatever mythics you have, with the main ones being probably Pharaoh Khafre or Rothamon, or even both together. And of course, you also have some mid-range stuff like Keeper of Souls, which of course could be a great alternative to things like Skeleton. But Skeleton's still fine. He has auto extra turn, armor gain. He used to have attack gain back in the day, but armor gain's still nice to make sure he doesn't die, and the auto extra turn is amazing. Oddly enough, still to this day, one of the only few things in the entire game that have Skull Creation while having auto extra turn. Actually, now that I think about it, is there another? Is it the only one? There has to be at least one other. But yeah, it's a cool mechanic nonetheless. Anyways, aside from that, other things. So as far as weekly other stuff, beyond the Legends Reborn event, this Tuesday we have ourselves the Fang faction. This is a red-yellow... Yeah, that sounds right. Red-yellow. Red-green? Red-blue. Red-blue. This is a red-blue restriction. Wednesday, we have ourselves one of the Kedar pets for, I believe, Undead bonus. Thursday, we have ourselves the Necromancer Hero class. Very situational as far as when you bring it out. Biggest issue with it is Archmagus tends to almost always be better than it. But there are some niche situations where you can bring it out. I believe it has 50% Mana Star. Obviously, for 4x Undead team, has that kind of benefit as well. But overall, doesn't really see much usage outside of those 4x Undead teams, or 4x Kedar, like you will be this week for both Karakoth and, or sorry, not for Karakoth, for Kedar and Underspire, or sorry, Raid and Underspire this week. And of course, this Friday we get Bounty Hunter, which doesn't really need the teams as pretty standard ones as far as what you normally run for that. You either run all in on this Graki build, or you're doing 3 of them into like a Stellarix or whatever your best damage source is. Anyways, beyond that, Soulforge. Let's see, have they fixed it in the time I've been talking? Nope. There's still no Gem Dragon here, or Celestial, Cosmic Dragon, whatever you want to call it. I always call them Celestial Dragons, not Cosmic Dragons, but you know what I mean. But yeah, it's not here. As far as other things to craft, one thing that's kind of funny is Shibano Vespera. Very similar to the Mythic that is in the Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest until this Friday, reset time. So if you want to get the Mythic from last Friday, or if you don't want to get it necessarily, but you want to use Shibano Vespera, of course she only does 1 stat at a time rather than all of them. However, despite that, she's still more consistent due to her way higher extra turn chance. By that I mean near guaranteed compared to the other thing, 0% chance, while also mana accumulating a really, really high amount, potentially creating 27 of a specific color. So while she can miss, this is way better overall most of the time than using the new Mythic, just because the amount that you'll be able to stack from all the extra turns will way outweigh the other one's higher amount that it gets per cast. All you have to do is get, what, like 4 extra turns, and this thing's pretty much already doing more between all the mana accumulation excess that it does, as well as the fact that you actually get to target some of it, and the fact that you can technically do it on herself some as well, whereas the other thing cannot end up buffing itself at all as far as magic without another troop. Of course, you could always use another troop, but she can kind of self-contain that without needing the other troop, allowing you to put other things onto your team that might be useful. But yeah, it's kind of funny that she's available in Soulforge this week. She's basically the closest thing to the Mythic in drop table right now, as far as Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest. So if you wanted to try it the other way around, or even both together, that is available. As far as weapons, I would pretty much just pick up whatever you need for the event. The most noteworthy one being the other explodey one, the Scarab Blade. Don't think there's anything too over the top. I don't know, does anyone use Doom Tome for PvP? I know this was really good for Guild War Defend, but I don't know, I just really felt like it's not needed. You'd be way better off with, like, if you're going to do this for something like blue, you'd be better off in the current state of the game with something like Grey King. Would probably serve you a lot better than Doomed Tome in current state of blue PvP. I know it's still good for probably Guild War in the future, but we have no clue when that's coming. It's likely, if I had to guess a time, it's going to be like sometime in the first half of next year. However, we have no official date on when on Earth they're re-adding Guild War. We know that they are going to, it's more so a matter of when, and even if it does get re-added, we don't know if this weapon will still be good, so I don't know, you can kind of get it on speculation if you want, but yeah, not much of a use case I would feel like in the current state of game. It's just a lot weaker offensively than it is defensively, and there's just not really any area that you need defensively currently within the game due to how everything works. Anyways, aside from that, yeah, we kind of already went over Legends Reborn, but just as a quick recap again, all you have to do as far as free stuff is go do this quest line with this new little quest screen. And they've reworked this. Gosh, they've reworked like every screen here. But most recently, just that final one as far as this patch. So go do that. Go do all those quests. You only have to do it once. Boom, you get that reward for the Max Ancient Horror. Then go kill at least 200 purples over the course of the entire week and make sure that you click claim. This will give you some copies of a pet for Cotherix, as well as a bunch of purple food, some diamonds, and a few other knick-knack stuff. Beyond that, if you have the 1,350 gems or whatever it is worthwhile if you have excess, like 10,000 plus, to go buy all this gem stuff. It'll give you 1 max mythic as far as these glory medals are concerned, as well as a few excess and enough food for 2 different pets, for both blue and for purple, as well as a decent stack of Imperials. The money one, I personally would consider not worth it. However, you can spend $50 to get 16 purple deed books, which is half of a Magic Kingdom max, which is pretty huge and definitely very pay to win. So if you want to buy power, it is available. That is basically half of a magic level for 50 bucks. Permanently before other people get it. Obviously, eventually everyone will have it, but you know, purple deed books in general are very slow, and purple is the most useful one, as there is 4 purple Magic Kingdoms. Those Magic Kingdoms being Silverglade, Karakoth, Darkstone, and Bladed Lands. And there is a 5th Magic Kingdom Zolkari, but this one is green, not purple. Actually, I can't even check it when I already have it max. I didn't realize that. I kind of forgot. I can't even get to that screen when I already have it max. Anyways, teams. So, various teams. Let's get into them. Let's start from the top. Raid event this week. This is a restriction of Kedar and also technically Barrel Lord, as you do want to use Barrel Lord for the double score. Keep in mind, I don't think I actually went over him earlier, but he's pretty standard troop, with the most noteworthy thing being he gains barrier, so you actually can tank with him. Not only does he have 25% score reduction, but he also gains barrier. One thing to keep in mind is that the raid troop will be able to insta-kill through his barrier. However, you can still reduce skull damage with it, other casts that aren't the boss troop, and similar things. With the boss troop in first slot here, we were basically going and rushing down the enemy boss, or sorry, the boss slayer, I should say. But we're going to be using this to kill the other boss as immediately as possible before it dies, and just one-shot it, two-shot it, whatever it takes. Rathaman is here for a bunch of skull spam, as well as giving purple to everything else in your team. We're going to be using the Dead Gauntlet in order to mana accumulate, creates a bunch of blue and purple based on undead on your team, and of course the full team is undead. And we are using a Pharaoh Kafru for a little bit extra damage, and to control that it gets into brown, which also feeds back into your weapon, which can feed back into it and just go back and forth if you really want to. Also having that 2 explodes per turn, which will help a lot in mana accumulation, especially on top of the potion effects and everything that you also have. And they do stack the 2 explodes with the 4 explode that you get from the explodey potion gem, but you do get potion gems for that, right? Am I going crazy? I'm pretty sure you do. Yeah, you do. Okay, just double checking. But yeah, you'd have explosion. You'd also have the enchant as well. But yeah, the 4 explode from this does stack with the 2 explode from the mythic, and of course that also stacks if you happen to have 2 of them. So if you have 2 of the mythic and this potion, that would actually be 8 explodes that you would end up getting. Of course, the explodes can explode near each other, but they do stack in that you will get additional explodes for having multiple of them like that. Beyond that, teams, more teams. So there's both the 2 raid teams, also all in the description below if you want to go and copy pasting them. Next, we have ourselves a red-blue restriction for the Fang faction event. Of course, weapon is still allowed to be any color in Underworld. So we're using our Skier Shield in order to buff Rowan. If you don't have our Skier Shield, you can use the shield we literally just got last week in order to do similar. And for our mana accumulation, we're just using Harpy Mage, which is basically a turn 2 empower with how its mana is set up, which will give you a bunch of explodes for mana accumulation if you don't already get it on turn 1 for your Rowan off of explosion and enchant gems, or potions, I mean. As far as the higher range, we're running basically a Truffle Quick Kill team. Just running double Truffle, Mirage Queen to get it going, and Green Storm into Dispel. We're using this hero class because it has Green Storm. We'll also be able to, every single extra turn, be able to go and dispel the enemy team, which is very relevant because of a Submerge. Submerge is pretty common in Underworld, and an easy way to do that is just get rid of it with a Dispel. However, you can also do it off of the curse that you have from Mirage Queen, so you can opt for a different hero class if you really want to. But I figure just in case the Mirage Queen dies, you do have at least a backup plan. The few situations where it does. It's pretty tanky with its 33% score reduction, but you know, at the higher level range can still end up coming down occasionally. Speaking of higher level range, if you're doing the level 500 Pure Faction or Pure Faction at any level, this is the team, the double Chief Dargon. You only need to keep one of them for the final fight. The Shaman set, and the Satari. So basically this thing is just really tanky, 50% score reduction. He also gives a bunch of attack to himself and all allies below him, so you generally only want to be casting the first one, not the second, when you're running both of them together. And the Shaman set and the other one are basically 2 things that put the team together. This gets to choose a color, and then creates red gems equal to the number of gems of that color. This will end up being, let's say, there are 12 blues on the board. You click blue, boom, you get 12 reds now. And ideally, you already have a decent amount of red, so that will end up getting your extra turn, and you'll be good to go. And that will also feed red into literally every other thing into your team, meaning that the only thing he really needs to get as far as mana is getting mana back into him, as he will give your mana to everything else. One thing that's nice about this is it does get to explode a row, so if you can try to get extra blue or green mana off of it, that's normally what you want to do. Not necessarily from exploding a bunch of blues and greens, but from getting a cascade of the blues and greens into each other, so you can get enough mana to ideally get the Shaman set down, and just keep going back and forth between casting both of your 2 Chief Dargons, and then getting your full mana, and then getting all your red again, and repeating. And then once you have enough attack to go in, you then go spam this. It creates 6 skulls, boosted by bleeding enemies, which does have a bleed. Pretty much everything here has like a small bleed on it. And once you have the whole enemy team bled, that will end up being, what, 14 skulls, which is a lot of skulls. And yeah, you just keep spamming him once you have enough attack on your front slots. And as long as this is your team going into the final fight, you'll be perfectly fine. The second one is mostly just to make sure if the first one dies, you have a backup. Next, we have ourselves the Necromancer class. Of course, pretty standard, just run all in on a quick kill weapon. In this case, we're using Purple Link into the Black Manacle, and if we happen to get a Devour, we'll be able to use the Skulls to end up poking for a lot of extra damage. Even if you don't get a Devour, you'll still be able to go poke with Azurus just to kill out whatever gets resummoned or anything similar to end up finishing out. And of course, we're doing it with Archmages for the very high amount of mana accumulation. Next, we have the Underspire teams. Underspire teams are going to be pretty similar to your World Event teams this week, and by World Event, I mean raids. However, worst comes to worst, you can just copy paste the same team. However, we do go slightly different teams with both of these this time around. This is mostly because we're dropping the raid troop for other things. In this case, we're doubling up on Pharaoh Khafre in order to go and have a lot more mana accumulation. Then using a combination of Creeping Death and Rathlamon as our main damage source. Doing a bit of skull damage here with the purple going into this. And you can opt for a little bit more of a safer, stolier weapon as far as mana accumulation and everything. However, I went with Creeping Death just because it's more damage pressure, just to kind of bring them more into kill range for Rathlamon, and who knows, maybe we'll get the Death Mark kill. Used to be a pretty good weapon that isn't used as much these days. Lastly, as far as our team, we have ourselves a Tomb Knight center team. So we're using Tomb Knight as our tank now. This ends up destroying a column and gains a bunch of armor and attack. This is a really good mechanic in Underworld whenever you gain armor and attack, particularly if you can end up doing it with a barrier. However, it also works for standard fights, particularly earlier on in the game, as barrier can negate all damage from a single attack, and gaining durability while gaining attack will slowly make you able to tank out the enemy while gaining increasingly more value for every single skull you take. Then you just give it a bunch of skulls with Skull Storm off of this weapon. If you have it fully maxed, Skeleton, which is a really accessible skull spammer. If you don't, you can end up upgrading this for Keeper of Souls if you have, and maybe change the banner around a little. But this is a cheaper option with Skeleton, but if you have Keeper of Souls, you can do that too. And Apophysis, which we're going to be using as a Empower Converter. Ends up converting all greens to skulls while giving life to your first ally, which will make this even tankier, as well as a stat that doesn't gain on its own, while also being able to synergize pretty well with your skull spam. So you get to skull off this, skull off of this, skull storm off of this, and then just keep buffing this so it never dies, and all the skull value will keep getting amplified by its increasingly higher attack. And not only does it gain barrier, but also has 30% score reduction, which ends up working out pretty nicely. So it should be fine. You can even run a similar team to this for I will eventually say the right modes. For raid event, you can run something similar. To do keep in mind, you have to use the raid troop for double score, so you'd either have to like replace Apophysis or Skeleton or something similar, but you can go down a similar route. The only reason I didn't show for that is the raid boss does have insta-kill, so you will be losing your team a little bit quicker and actually needing to utilize the resummon off of the weapon, which is the main difference compared to Underspire, where nothing has insta-kill there. There are like pseudo insta-kills, like, you know, Devour and Deathmark, but it doesn't have like true insta-kill like what the raid event has. Anyways, I think that is everything except for the Soulforge that I can't show. I really wish I could show this now. That's going to be fixed like literally the second I post this video. I will post this video and literally 10 minutes later they will add it to Soulforge, which is very unfortunate, but if they fixed it by the stream tonight, we'll go over it on stream as we stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mondays, Fridays, and Sundays now here on the channel. So yeah, we'll go over it tonight because, well, we can't go over it now, unfortunately. I really want to know what it is, but the cost-wise, because that really determines like what range is good for. Basically, if they made it like double or triple the cost, it's worth it for the final 3. If they made it like about 5 times the cost of an egg, then it's worth it only for the final 2. And if it's like 10 times the cost or more, you probably only want to do it for the final 1, as far as these eggs are concerned. Unless you're like super dry and you just want to get it done already if you've done like 40 or 50 of them. Which some people have. I think there's some people who are almost like a triple-digit number without getting the one they need, which is absolutely insane how unlucky that is. But of course, these new craftable things that aren't here quite yet will be able to help offset that in the future. And also, both of them will be available with Cosmic and Gems. Obviously, whatever one we're going to be getting later this year, if we do get another set of dragons, whenever we do, those will not be able to rotate initially. There's going to be a 1-year grace period before they do. But at least for getting Diamantina and most notably Stellaryx, it will be pretty easy to do, or at least a lot easier compared to the past, as you won't have to deal with the RNG wall of these eggs. So how many eggs say I do? 20? Well, I actually have a decent stack of Dragonite right now. I didn't even realize we're at 11,000. That means on the next set of eggs, we're already ready to go on like 20-ish of them, or more so, I guess 22. Actually, it says right there, why am I doing that? Because we don't know if it's going to cost more or less, same. That'd be funny if they just increase it by 50 each time. 500, 550, 600 for every new set. Though I'm scared to know what's stronger than Stellaryx, though. If they're going to add Stellaryx 2.0 or Diamantina 3.0, whatever way you want to look at it. But anyways, guys, that will do it for now. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. All the teams that we just went over are in description, as well as probably the pinned comment, if you want to go and copy paste any of them. And I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and have a wonderful week.